Why you should own assets and not just pay tithes? Because you tithe, you give, you believe in sowing. But why is there no harvest? Could it be God just didn't call you to give, he called you to own? Ownership is the forgotten kingdom principle. Why giving alone isn't enough? Because we understand tithing is biblical. It's found in the book of Malachi, but it's not the full picture of financial stewardship. Because a financial stewardship basically means the money or the finances that God has placed in your care, you have to steward it correctly. Many Christians are just taught sow into the kingdom, sow in the good ground, but they're not taught to build. The money that's left over after you tithe, you have to build upon that money that's left over. And what do you do with that money that's left over? Create some form of ownership, not just real estate. It could be intellectual properties. It can be stocks. It can be bonds. It can be whatever it is. You have to take some form of ownership, because when you own, you control. When you own, you can call the shots. When you own, you have power, because faith without works is dead, and tithing without ownership just leads to dependency. The 3 hidden dangers of only giving. Number 1, short-term mindset. Because when you're only giving, you giving without growth leads to constant lack. Constant lack. Because you don't know what you're doing. You just giving, you paying your tithe and giving an offering, and you're not expecting nothing in return. It's going to lead to constant lack. Whatever you have, it's eventually going to run out. If you don't have any growth, there's nothing to replenish what you have given. So giving without growth leads to constant lack, because we expect an overflow, but if you don't have an overflow system, it's not going to work. And if you don't know what an overflow system is, let me explain to you. Whatever you have in place, the system is whatever that business is generating, whatever is overflowing from it, I'm talking about finances now, whatever is overflowing from it, you can have another system set in place. So whatever excess is coming from that one place, you can pour it into the next place. And once that start overflowing, you can pour it into the next place. And once that start overflowing, pour it into the next place. Why? Because when you give, you expecting an overflow. The second hidden dangers of only giving. No multiplication strategy. You just giving and you don't expect nothing in return. You just giving and you don't know how to multiply whatever you have left, because God multiplies what you manage. That's what I want you to think about now. What are you managing that God can multiply? And the third hidden dangers of only giving, your dependency on miracles over principles. Because you know principles are good and operate in any place, anytime, with anyone. But you're dependent on miracles, that's not the way that you should operate. We operate on principles. And since we operate on principles, we know that whatever we do, it's going to produce a result, because we're not going to wait on miracles instead of creating margin. Because the principle says, if I take product A that I buy for $1 and sell it to this person for $5, the margin is $4. I create $4 profit from this product I purchased for $1. That's a margin. And since the principle works for anyone at any time in any place, I don't have to wait for a miracle for somebody to purchase this product so I can make this profit. What God really wants? He wants you to have ownership and legacy with biblical backing. Because Proverbs 13:22 says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his kids' kids. Basically, it's saying your grandkids are going to benefit from the things that you have accomplished now. If you structure it the right way, your grandkids are going to be living off of those things that you have already put in place. And by doing so, you're going to be a good man. Deuteronomy 8:18 says, God gives power to get wealth. That's when he said, I'm going to open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing. A blessing is not a car that's going to drop out of the sky. A blessing is not a house that's going to drop out of the sky. A blessing could be an idea for you to structure and build to become an owner and have ownership of that idea. Look what Steve Jobs did. He had an idea. I'm going to put a computer in your hand that you can make phone calls with that's going to revolutionize the whole world evermore. And now we have the iPhone. Bill Gates says, I'm going to create a system for this thing that's called a computer that's going to revolutionize the world. And he created Microsoft, one of the richest men in the whole world, because he had an idea. You had a blessing download into your mind, and you expanded that idea, and you used it to create ownership, and not just ownership, to leave a legacy for your kids' kids. And he gave him power, and he obtained that wealth. All these things he just downloaded into your mind. And once you understand ownership, leads to legacy. And once you understand what legacy is, God doesn't just want to give us a house. He wants us to own the land that the house is on. How to shift from tither to kingdom asset builder. Number one, you start with stewardship. You track and you budget. You track all the expenses that you have throughout the day or throughout the month. What you're spending on coffee, what you're spending on lunch, what you're spending on rent, what you're spending on food, what you're spending on the clothes you buy. Whatever you have, you track that money. Once you track it and find out where is it going, you can budget it. You can budget out what's left over and say, oh, I could take out this cable bill. I could take out this phone bill. I could take this out. I could take that out. And once you track it and see where it's going and you take all those things out that's not necessary, that's when you could take all that excess and put it into some ownership commodity. That's number one. Start with stewardship. Number two, learn the language of assets. Learn the language of assets. And what am I talking about? You got to know what IP means. You got to know what equity means. You got to know what real estate means. You got to know what these things mean, because IP means intellectual property. It's like ebooks and those books that people write. That's what intellectual property is. Equity. If you have equity in the business or equity in your house, that's the money that you have that's not tied up. If you have real estate, what's real estate? Properties, commercial properties. It could be residential properties. That's what we have to understand. Learn the language of these assets. And number three, partner with people who build. Get in rooms where ownership is normal. Don't worry about, oh man, I'm just renting now. But that doesn't mean you can't get in those rooms where people own. You got to start somewhere. So get in rooms where ownership is normal. And number four, pray and plan. Pray and plan. This is a big one because a lot of people just pray, but they don't plan. But you got to pray and plan, because faith and financial frameworks is key. Why is it key? Because we can have faith. Faith without works is dead. So we can have faith as a mustard seed, but faith without works is dead. But if you got a framework, I believe I can start this business and it's going to make me millions. It's going to generate billions, but it can make me millions. What's the framework? Start my business. Get the funding for my business. Put up the correct structure for my business. LLC, C Corp, S Corp. Here's the framework. I buy the product for $1. Sell the product for $5. In between $4, I generate $4 from this product I bought for $1. That's a framework. Another framework. I hire 10 people. Pay them $10 an hour. Each of them generate me $100 a day. And I only pay them $40 a day. So I'm making the money from them working. I'm generating revenue, and that's how God is multiplying what I'm managing. And that's how you shift from tither to kingdom asset builder. And I feel you. I know some of y'all saying, man, I don't have enough to give. Man, I'm just barely making it right now. You want me to give my tithe? You want me to give an offering on top of my tithe? I can barely just pay my rent. I feel you. I understand what you're saying. Because there was a time in my life I was faithfully giving, but I was broke. Yeah. I was paying my car note. I was paying the car insurance. I was paying my rent. I was buying food for the house. Not only buying food for the house, I was paying all these bills, the electric bill, the light bill, the gas bill, paying all these bills. And I had more bills than money. I understand how you feel. I wasn't always a tithe payer. But until I learned that sowing must lead to some type of strategy, that's when everything changed. I started building. From scratch. I wasn't perfect, but I started building from scratch. And now my giving has impact and an overflow. Now listen, here's a recap. Tithing is a seed. Once you plant that seed, it's going to grow. You got to cultivate that ground. You got to water that ground. And that seed is going to grow. And once it grows, use that seed to buy some assets. Become an owner and have some assets. Because when you have assets are like trees that feed generations. Not only for the birds, not only for the bees, but it feeds generations. Your kids' kids, your grandkids. So stop sowing and start owning. Because when you own, you control. When you own, you run the shots. When you own, you have power. Comment below if you're ready to own something for God's glory. And subscribe for more faith-filled finance revelation. Because if you want to have what God calls you to have, I want you to subscribe and get the next video that's coming out.